So I'm massively happy to say we have our first guest on Jay's Talk with Jay today. And here we have Sheldon from Toronto. He's well known to the Instagram community. Of the Jays fans seem to love him. He was kind enough to reach out. Sheldon, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is an awesome opportunity.
Well, let's hope so. There's the following's growing. The following's growing. It's not quite where I'd like it to be at the moment, but it's getting there slowly. So we're going to talk Jays today. Obviously, you're wearing a Jays hat. For those who are listening on Spotify, you can't see that, so I thought I'd point it out. Unlike the broadcasters on Sportsnet, who seem to think everybody's watching on TV, but I think it's probably best we don't talk about that. It's been a sore subject for a lot of people. But one of the reasons why I've got you on today is I feel like you kind of know your stuff. You've been very approachable since we started chatting over the last few days. Where do you think the Jays are at the moment? We'll go into talking about the games and stuff a little bit later, but where do you think the Jays are at the minute?
I think right now they are a team that I think contend for a wild card. They do have a lot of competition this year with not only New York and Tampa, but they also got Chicago, Cleveland, Minnesota. They have Oakland, even though they've started slow, LA and Houston. So there's a lot of teams that they have to compete for not only playoff spots, but just a wild card. If they don't make it this year, I don't think it's a lost season. Again, we have a lot of young players that are still learning. And the fact that some of them are injured, there's been the COVID issues over the last couple of days. They won 85 games. It's a success. In my eyes, it would be a success.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen a lot of we're useless. Oh my God, this is going to be terrible. I even saw a guy write on Twitter yesterday that he'd be surprised if the Jays were to win 65 games. I don't see that happening, and I think last night was a good example. The Angels are a good team.
No, I agree. The Angels are a very good team. Last night. They had Jose Quintana, and he was very wild. And he's not been the same pitcher from years before. So the Jays, they took advantage of it. They didn't even try to hit a home run. They just made contact. They put the ball in play, and that's should be something they should be doing more often.
Yeah, everyone's been talking about their power, and like yesterday showed, it doesn't have to be just power. And I thought it was actually quite clever of some of the hitters, whereas normally they'd go out and try and hit it totally out of the park. Whereas last night they seemed a bit more in control.
I agree. They I think this little streak that they're on, where they've lost a few games, and the offense has sputtered, kind of gave them a different approach to last night's game. And again, Quintana was wild, but they took advantage of it. They tried to go the other way. They were very successful in going the other way, going the opposite field. They had a lot of team speed in that lineup. And when we talk about team speed, think about stolen bases, but going from first to third, that's great base running. And they were doing quite a bit of running around. And yeah,
Vladdy going from first to home, that was kind of impressive, right? Like, you don't see that often.
No, he's lost a lot of weight. He even stole a base last night. So he's looking really good physically, and I think that's very important. Last year and a half has been a bit of a wake-up call for someone as talented as Vladdy. He's starting to put in the work away from the field, and we're starting to see the results. He's the hitter that I think everyone expects him to be, and he's incredibly successful. As long as he just stays within himself, I can only recall maybe one or two at bats so far this year where he's expanded the strike zone. And
the Texas game, wasn't it? The Texas game where he kind of really three strikes, he was done.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was a good example of him kind of not staying true to himself. Vladdy has a lot of power. We know that. But his success in the minors was hitting for a high average, taking walks, being very patient at the plate, working the count. That's the Vladdy that we're seeing right now. And he's going to get his home runs. He's going to hit 25 to 30. He may even go beyond that. But give me the Vladdy who can hit 320, have an on base of 400, have a slugging north of 525. That's the Vladdy that the Jays need. And someone like him, beneficial to the lineup. And what he's doing right now is very beneficial to the lineup.
I agree. Like, it's been a long time since we've had a Jays hitter hit over 300. Like, comfortably over 300 for sustained period over the season. Like, I can't remember the last guy who did it. We've had people there or thereabouts, but no one's ever hit sort of 320, 330 I can't remember when who the last person was.
I think the last Jay to actually successfully do it was, I think Carlos Delgado put up a 340 batting average, and that was in 2000 when he had that huge season.
Yeah.
And kind of lost in that era was Shannon Stewart, who was constantly hitting over 300 and as a leadoff hitter and getting on base at a 360 clip. So to have a player like Vladdy, and I think soon Bo's going to be that guy too. He's going to hit very well.
He's looking good, right? He's looking good at the moment.
It was some of that that was mentioned on Blue Jay Center, another podcast I'm a part of, that Bo in a number 2 spot is incredibly successful. And for the first part of the season, we've seen him in a number 3 spot. And at the time, I couldn't understand it. I was like, well, you're taking him out of looks like his comfort zone. And last night we've seen it. He was batting in a number 2 spot, and he looked very relaxed. He looked like himself. And hopefully they keep him in a number 2 spot. Bo in a number 2 spot, and then number 3 could be Vladdy, could be Teoscar when he comes back, could be Lourdes when he gets hot. Number 3 could be interchangeable depending on who's doing well.
Why do you think we've struggled? I say we struggled. Why do you think we've had issues against Texas? Bearing in mind the first game against Texas, we blew them out the water. They weren't in it from the start. We straight away score some runs, and then it's like, you've got to play catch up. They can't catch us. The game was done within the first couple of innings. Why do you think we've struggled so much? And it can't be because of the change in players and stuff. Because look at Espinal's come in, Palacios has come in. They've done really well yesterday. So there's 4 games there, 2 against Texas, 2 against the Angels, where we kind of really struggled. Why do you think that is?
Youth. I think it's just they're young players, and unfortunately this little slump started at the beginning of the season, and everything gets magnified at the beginning of the season. If players are hot, the media and fans are going to anoint that player as a great player. And right now it's the beginning of the season. It's a slump. They were 3-5 before last night's game. Now they're 4-5. So they're not, they're just a game under 500 at the moment. It's not like they're 1-7 or 2-6.
Yeah, agree. I totally agree. I think that it's interesting to see how the Torontonians react to a loss, not multiple losses, a loss. And it's all devastating. It's game over. It's just interesting to see how the mentality. Bearing in mind, we're not a winning team. We haven't been a winning team since the early 90s. So I just wonder what people's mindset is. It's we're not even a contending team. Not really.
I think the fact that they made these moves with Springer and Simeon, and they got Matz, and Matz has been performing very, very well for the Jays.
He's been really good. I've been very impressed.
I think there's, I think the city is starving for a World Series. It's been a long time, since '93. We had a team in 2015 and in 2016 that made it to the playoffs. They had a huge offense in 2015, and they had enough pitching with Price and Stroman and their starters and a bullpen that could make it, but unfortunately didn't make it.
I was this close. I swear to God, I was this close to booking flights. Like, I was, my good friend who lives in Toronto, and I was like, dude, one more win, 2 more wins. I said, I'm booking my flights. I'm coming. It wasn't to be. But I thought that we definitely had a chance. I thought that there's.
It was very exciting. I think the whole thing between 2015, where at that time nobody knew that Alex Anthopoulos would have been his last season as general manager, but he went out and made moves to shore up the team.
Yeah.
And people fail to realize that the team at the time of those moves were under 500 at the time. And they got Price, and they got Ben Revere, and they got Troy Tulowitzki. And, they won 90 plus games. They won 93 games.
Ben Revere was a funny one because he kind of was the unsung hero. Like it kind of because Price came in and did such a good job leading up to the playoffs, it kind of got unnoticed the work that Revere had done.
Exactly. I mean, he was strong defensively and left. He was a left-handed bat, speed on the bases, but he was kind of like flowing under the radar a little bit. People were talking about Price and what he was doing, and we were talking about Tulowitzki and what he possibly could bring to the lineup.
What he didn't do.
He played well defensively. Offensively, he struggled a little bit, and it could be because going from the National League to the American League, could be going from Coors Field to the Rogers Center. I always say Skydome from time to time. But going from Coors Field, which is a hitter's haven, to Rogers Center, which is not a bad park to hit in, but and also mentally maybe he
wasn't feeling it. Yeah, I don't know. I some friends of mine, they were like, I can't believe we've got Tulo, and I was like, I can't even pronounce the guy's name. And you're going crazy about him. And for me, he did nothing. I was very disappointed with his time.
I was surprised that we had gotten him. I didn't think he was even in the discussions until there was a rumor flying around that Jays had kind of fires on Troy Tulowitzki. Yeah. And when the announcement made, when it first came across, was the Jays had acquired Troy Tulowitzki. And I'm trying to figure out, well, where does Jose Reyes fit into this? And then they had mentioned about a half hour later, Jose Reyes was going to Colorado. And I'm like, okay, you kind of.
And you would have thought at the time it was an upgrade, right?
I defensively, it was. Jose was having some problems defensively. I think the issues with the clubhouse was that it was a very tight group. Jose Reyes, Jose Bautista, Edwin Encarnacion. It was a very tight group, and all of a sudden Jose Reyes gets traded, and at the time, it ruffled a few feathers. Even though Troy Tulowitzki was coming in, it probably did get a few people, upset. Yeah. And of course, it's a clubhouse. You're going to have kind of, I don't want to say the word cliques, but you're going to have groups that are together quite often. And, when someone gets traded, I'm sure there's, even though there's a professional side, there's a personal side.
Do we think the team that we have at the moment is close to being as good as 15, 16? I've talked about this on a previous podcast, and I think that if we can get the pitching right, there's no reason why. And obviously, if we can get people like Springer fit, I don't see any reason why this team couldn't emulate what they did and maybe go that one step further.
If we can get another starter to help out at the moment, Hyun-Jin Ryu and Steven Maxson. If they can get another starter to help them out, whether it be someone internally like Pearson or
fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Or I'm kind of hoping Thomas Hatch is another person that they can look at. I think he's got very, very good stuff. I think he could be a great number 3 starter. Or they go externally and hope that one of the teams starts to fall out of the race and they're interested in trading a starter. There's been talk of Luis Castillo and John Gray as potential targets if those two teams don't do well. They have the capital to trade. I mean, they have prospects that they can unload if they need to get a light starter. But they are. I feel that they are another starter away from being comparable to the 2015 and 2016 teams. If their offense performs up to their capabilities, and they don't have to post career numbers or anything, but if Simeon is close to 2018, if Vladdy does what Vladdy's been doing, if Bo does what he's been doing, if Kevin kind of rates a little bit, even Rowdy, and once Rowdy gets on a hot streak, it's a left-handed power bat.
Yeah, I don't want to write him off. I don't want to write him off just yet. I think Rowdy he's one swing away from starting his season. I think. I don't think he's going to be another Kendrys Morales.
He's been getting a little bit of flack. He's like 0-23 at the moment, or 0-21 at the moment. And again, everything is magnified at the beginning of the season. So if this was in the middle of the season and he was over 23, I don't think there would have been so much attention drawn to it. I think a lot of people like Rowdy as a person. I think a lot like Rowdy as a baseball player. And the fact that he has left-handed power, the fact that there is so much potential in him as a hitter, like you had mentioned, he's just one swing away of starting to click and starting to perform the way he's capable of performing.
Serious question. How much do we have to pay to get rid of Tanner Rourke?
It's a very good question. It's probably going to have to be a full contract plus a prospect.
But on a serious note, because it looks like we're possibly stuck with him. Like, would you get rid of him? Would you say enough's enough now? Because I felt like that after his last start.
His last start was very concerning as a fan, because the Tanner Rourke that we signed obviously was not going to be a Tanner Rourke of years before, but everything seemed short. Everything seemed too straight. Everything wasn't breaking. And it's almost like he's a batting practice pitcher right now. And that's unfortunate, because here's a guy that can give you 200 plus innings. Here's a pitcher who in the past is capable of pitching very well. And unfortunately right now it looks like, and Joel Siddall had mentioned it on Blue Jays telecast, that just maybe this is the end of Tanner Rourke in terms of his abilities. And it happens to everybody. And there's a part of me that hopes that he kind of turns it around, but there's also a part of me that says, this is very reminiscent of pitchers the Jays have had before. Pat Henkin was one that we signed and didn't perform in Jack Morris's 1993 season.
So I asked you, where do we think that they sit at the moment? Let's just say that everyone's fit. We know that we throw Springer in there. I think the odd man out as it stands at the moment is probably Rowdy. But you don't send him down. You keep him. But what happens over the next week if Palacios and Espinal start playing out of their brains? Do they stay? Like, because I was waiting. Sorry to interrupt. I was waiting to see what the lineup was going to be today before the game was called off, to see if they were both going to play, or whether Kevin would come straight back in.
I think what may end up happening is, right now, if Palacios continues to play the way he's playing, and Espinal continues to perform the way he's performing, and he was up last year and he performed very well for us.
Yeah, I agree.
Jonathan Davis could be the odd man out. And, story-wise, it's a great story for Jonathan Davis to make the team. But if, Palacios can play center.
Sentiment goes out the window, right?
Yeah. So Davis could be the odd man out. Joe Panic could be an odd person out, even though he brings a veteran bat and experience.
And he's not playing that badly.
No. But, if you kind of compare the two between Panic and Santiago, one bat's left-handed, one bat's right-handed. But, Santiago looks like he has a little bit more of an offensive skill set than Joe Panic. So who do you go with? I would probably go with Santiago Espinal, just because I have more speed on the bench. And with Jonathan Davis and with Josh Palacios, do you want a right-handed bat or do you want a left-handed bat? And who can play well defensively? And Jonathan Davis can play well defensively, but Palacios has that ability as well. So it's one of those things where it's a good problem to have for the Jays, that you have so much talent that you have to choose instead of, I don't have enough. They have more than enough.
Yeah, Charlie's definitely going to earn his money this year by the looks of things. He's got some decisions to make, and I think as we move into next week, it will become a bit more clearer. Like, Springer should be back at some point. It might be towards the end of the week, but he should be back. And then obviously once he's back, then the outfield will I think Lourdes should be back as well. and then it's just whether Teoscar's whether he's caught COVID or not. I guess we have to wait and see what's happened there. As a Jays fan in Toronto, obviously I know that it's been quite bad. You've been locked down. Things kind of look like they might open up, and then they like shut everything down again. Trust me, I know better than anyone. I was meant to come out last summer, and my holiday was cancelled. I was very, very annoyed. But it is what it is. How is it knowing that your team is playing so far away? It must be really strange.
It's a strange feeling to have, but because we did it last year, and we understand what's going on here in Toronto and in Ontario, that it's next to impossible to have a Major League Baseball team at the moment, because teams are crossing the border. If they do happen to cross the border, they got to quarantine, and it's not really feasible. But there's always hope that the Jays will return at some point in the year. Could be August, could be September. There's a little bit of hope there, but there's also people saying that maybe next year is the year that everything goes back to normal.
So you don't think it will happen this year?
I would probably put it at maybe 25% that the Jays come back this year.
So you're all going to be jumping in your cars, driving up to Buffalo?
Probably. Yeah, some people would. I mean, I have friends who would go to Buffalo to watch games, so they're into those things. I probably wait until they come.
I have my own views on it. I couldn't imagine anything worse than going to watch a sports game wearing a mask. Like, for me, I just don't know.
It's at the moment it's the way of life, right? I mean,
yeah. It seems that way.
Yeah, even if you get the vaccine, they're still requiring you or asking you to,
unless you're from Texas.
How Texas is doing it. I would like to believe that everything they're doing is fine and it's working for them. Kudos to them if everything is healthy down there.
It was just the way that you could see behind the home plate, and they were all just chatting away, no masks, nothing.
They've done something down there that unfortunately we don't live in Texas, so we don't know what's going on. But again, if the numbers are true and they've gotten it beat, or they've got it suppressed, or they've somehow overcome it, kudos to the people of Texas.
It's got to be alcohol. I can't think of any other reason they get around it. It's the alcohol in their systems. It's killing off the germs. They're drinking themselves into a healthy state.
Well, we have the LCBO open here in Ontario, so if Texas came out and said it was alcohol, I guarantee you a lot of people in Ontario will be going to the LCBO to get their alcohol.
Oh, yeah. Oh, funny. Okay, so we should really talk about what's happened over the last few days. We'll start with the disappointment from Texas. We'll just recap that quickly, and then we'll cover over the last 3 days against the Angels. In case anyone isn't aware, the final game of the homestand against the Angels was called off today because of bad weather. Yesterday's game managed to finish at 6 a.m. UK time, which was never going to happen. I had no chance of staying up, so I watched it when I got up this morning. But we'll talk about that after. Let's flip back. We'll flip back to the Rangers. We saw a good performance first game. We looked pretty good. I was jumping up and down thinking, yeah, here we go. This is going to be a great season. And then bang, 2 back-to-back losses. But they weren't just back-to-back losses. They were defeats where it's like someone had forgot to put the batteries in the toy and like turn it on. Like we didn't compete at all.
I don't know if it was, and this happens to teams and the players. They beat New York 2 out of 3, and then you're playing Texas, which on paper the Jays should have won 2 out of 3, if not sweep them. The Jays are on paper a much more talented team, but sometimes that letdown of playing a team like New York and playing a struggling rebuilding team like Texas at the moment, maybe they just weren't as competitive enough. And I think that's what we saw was, again, these are young players, and I'm not making excuses. They really should have won those games, but it could have been a psychological letdown.
So no motivation against Texas. I kind of got that. It's Texas. That we've got no enthusiasm to really go there. It's kind of boring. We just beat the Yankees. We can conquer the world. So Texas is done. Home opener in front of what's technically our home crowd. It wasn't much of a crowd, let's face it. But so what happened on game one there? The motivation surely should have been there.
If I remember correctly, game one, they went to extras. And it's just it's the rule, man. It's
that's the thing, because like I felt that we probably should have won that game.
Oh, I agree. I think you can't even blame Rafael Dolis for that. He threw one pitch, and David Fletcher got that hit. It was just,
It's a good hit. It's a good hitter. It's a good hitter that hit a good pitch. That was it.
Yeah, it was basically it. I mean, it was one of those things where you chalk it up to, innings. They got the hit, and we didn't. Game two, the Jays should have rebounded. I'm a firm believer of, you were close to winning the first game in extras. That should kind of carry over and give you a little bit of confidence that you can hang with a team like the Angels.
Yeah.
The Angels are a very good team. And anytime you face Mike Trout, anytime you face Shohei Ohtani and Anthony Rendon, and even though Albert Pujols is not the Albert Pujols is old, and David Fletcher, you're going to be in for a battle, but it's a good battle. You're kind of seeing where you stand.
I'll be honest. I think we would have won tonight. I think that with them getting they got beat down yesterday, and we'll come to that in a minute, but I think they would have won tonight. So it was a shame that they couldn't take something from game two, and just show actually we can compete with these guys. It was for me, I was disappointed with not so much the result. It was more the way we lost. Like, we weren't ever in that game.
No, it was just one of those games where at the end of the day, we're going to have games where we're going to lose badly. I mean, it's inevitable. It's 162 games. That kind of separates good teams from great teams, where you chalk it up as a beatdown and you move forward.
Which was why it was so impressive last night.
Yeah, it was almost like they became a little more cognizant of what they need to do instead of what they want to do.
Yeah.
And what they really need to do is take the pitches the other way, go the other way, run the bases, play as strong as defense as you possibly can. And, it worked. They see the success in it. And hopefully they continue. I mean, it's not like they're not going to hit home runs. They're going to hit home runs. It's a very, very powerful lineup. But right now, you don't have Teoscar. You don't have Lourdes. Cavan was in the lineup. Rowdy's been struggling. So they have to find other ways of winning. And they showed it again last night. They were patient. They went the other way. They ran.
Took a lot of walks.
Yep. They were incredibly patient. It helps that Quintana and the other pitchers were wild, but they didn't chase. And that was the great thing. And I think Vladdy's at bats are an example of it. He's not chasing. He's waiting. He's having the pitcher throw 5, 6, 7 pitches every at bat, and it works for him, and it's working, and it's working for the entire lineup. And I think
before we talk about last night's game, Jordan Romano, Julian Merriweather, how good have they really been?
They have been very good. I don't want to say they are the new Ward Hankey of the Blue Jays. I don't want to say that yet. I don't want to jinx them. But having those two arms in the bullpen, and people, again, Dolis gets, criticized quite a bit, but he pitched well last year too. And you have those three arms coming out of the bullpen. And Tim Meza has been performing well out of the bullpen, especially coming back from surgery.
Do we end up seeing Trent Thornton start? Is that what it's looking like at the moment?
I would keep Trent Thornton as if they're going to continue with, if they're going to continue with Tanner Roark as a starter, and I know he's going to be in the bullpen for tomorrow's game, so he could piggyback Robbie Ray, because we don't know what Robbie Ray is going to give you. He's coming back from an injury as well.
Yeah,
but if they don't make any moves and it's going to be Hyun-Jin Ryu, Steven Matz, TJ Zoik, Ross Strickland, and Tanner Roark, I would have Trent Thornton prepare every 5 days, because if Tanner doesn't give you a lot of innings, you have Trent Thornton who can give you 3 or 4 innings. Just do what the Texas Rangers do, which is what they call tandem pitching. Have a starter go 4 or 5 and then have the other guy come in and finish off the game.
That's why last night it was great to have just 2 pitchers go in. Starter does what he needs to do, and then bring one in, 2-3 innings, game over, job done. It would be, obviously that's never going to happen all the time, but it was nice, and it meant that the bullpen got a good rest. So let's talk last night. Jays win 15-1. Rain delayed for, I lost count of how many hours it was delayed now, but it started at silly o'clock in the morning UK time. It finished at 6 o'clock in the morning. I did not watch it live. I'm going to put my hands up, but I watched it this morning when I got up. Wow, impressive. I think that for me, Bo, Vladdy, Palacios, Espinal, I think they're the ones that stood out. But I want to talk about Randall Grichuk first. For a guy that probably thinks before the season started, I've lost my place in the team, he's an half doing his best to make sure that doesn't happen.
He had said in the offseason that he was going to do everything he can to not give them a reason to take him out of the lineup. And he's performing like a man that does not want to come out of the lineup. If you took last year's, what he did last year and how he performed last year, and you take what he's doing right now, it looks like he's turned a corner. And for some players, it takes a little bit longer than others. And Randall has always had incredible power. But if you notice this year, he's going the opposite field. Like last year, he was going to opposite field quite a bit. And this year, he's doing the same thing. And he's having great at-bats. He's strong enough to hit one out pretty much every at-bat. He's a very strong young man. But he's having some very, very good at-bats. And, it presents a problem when Lourdes comes back and George Springer comes back and Teoscar comes back. What happens? Do you keep Randall in right field and put Teoscar as the everyday DH? And Rowdy is someone that will get spot starts at first and at DH, or what do you do? It's a very good problem to have for the Jays, because again, you have a lot of offense you can choose from, but I cannot see them taking Randall out of the lineup, not right now. And he's been performing very well, especially at the bottom of the order. He's putting up very big numbers.
I know if you think once everyone's fit and healthy, and you've got someone like Randall Grichuk is hitting 8th, maybe.
That's exactly it. He's going to be the guy who's going to be hitting 7th, 8th, or 9th. And you kind of make that lineup longer and you make it much more deadlier. And, if you ask every pitcher, the last thing they want is to see a lineup that is that good and to be that long, because there's no breathing spots in a lineup like that, other than maybe catcher. And, Danny Jansen starts to hit, or Kirk starts to hit, where's the easy spot in that lineup?
Yeah, that's
Kevin Biggio. Even with Kevin Biggio, if he starts to perform like how we've seen him perform, that's a 370, 380 on base percentage type of a player. And he's going to work the pitcher. He's going to literally wear down the pitcher.
Yeah. Palacios, who comes into their second game ever and goes 4 for 4 with a walk.
He performed incredibly well last night. I love his excitement when he dropped that bunt and got his first base hit. The way he reacted was, he loves the game. He's there to have fun.
Yeah.
And that's you kind of see that exuberance and that energy out of him. And again, with Santiago Esmal, he stepped in and just performed incredibly well. He's someone that, unfortunately, because of the numbers, he got sent to the alternate site, and no disrespect to Joe Panic, but he was selected. So I really hope the kids continue to perform well. And again, it offers a great problem for the Jays. Like, what do you do next? Who do you keep? Who do you send down? Do you make a move for a pitcher? Do you trade someone? Is Palacios someone that, if he perform well, could he be a trade piece in a deal for someone? So it's presenting great problems for the Jays at the moment.
Finally, we'll touch on Bo. I think that people were at the start of the season. We say start. It's still the start of the season. People, like, calm down. We're not that far into the season. Like, just take it easy. But people were saying that, oh no, he's not hitting. He's not doing that. I think we can forget that already, because he's shown over the last few games that the Bo that we've seen is the Bo that seems to be back now. How good can this kid get?
He reminds me of a player that used to play for Boston by the name of Nomar Garcia-Pera. He has that ability. I know some people kind of compare him to Josh Donaldson because of the leg kick and his swing, but he can post numbers that are prime Nomar Garcia-Pera type numbers. He's that good offensively. I would prefer to keep him in the 2 spot and let him be. Let him do the damage he's capable of doing. He's frighteningly good at this moment, and I don't think he really has a ceiling. I wouldn't be surprised if he hits 360 one season. I wouldn't be surprised if he hits 35 home runs. I wouldn't be surprised if he becomes a 30-30 guy. He is that incredibly talented. So
defensively,
he needs more time at short. People are talking about moving him to second and flipping Simi into short. I think that's only going to stunt his progress as a shortstop. I would keep him at short. He's got range. He's got a good enough arm to be at short. We've seen him actually throw really well when he needs to. It's just getting the reps. It's just getting the amount of time there.
So what have we got coming up this week? I actually haven't even looked.
We got the Yankees coming up this week. Let me check the schedule right now because I have it right beside me. So we got the Yankees and the Kansas City Royals.
That's right. They're saying that Springer could be back for the Royal Series, but it's likely it'll be after that.
Those are not easy games. People are kind of probably going to look and say, well, Kansas City Royals are a great team. They made some moves this offseason, and they offensively can be very, very dangerous. So, don't sleep on the Royals. Later on in the week, the Yankees.
Unless it's 6:00 in the morning.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the game started at 9:45, finished at maybe 1 something. And
it was like 1:30, right? I think.
Yeah, I was both there. And I got to give respect to, again, those young guys at Blue Jays Center who I occasionally do podcasts for. They were up and they were still excited about the game. So
yeah, I don't think that it would have been as good if we had lost 15-1. It might have been a deal I waited up for this.
Probably would have heard some R-rated language from that. But anybody who thinks that baseball is losing the young generation, I don't see it. There's a lot of young players that a lot of young people are attached to. And here in Toronto, it's Vladdy and Bo, especially Vladdy and Bo. In the States, it's Tim Anderson, and obviously people love Mike Trout. In New York, they got Aaron Judge, and there's a lot of young players that are playing right now that a lot of young fans are drawn to. So, back to the Yankees. The Yankees haven't started to run on all cylinders yet, and that's very frightening.
Let's hope that they don't know. Like, I got to be honest, I'd like to see them run on no cylinders for the rest of the season.
I think if the Yankees fail, that's bad for baseball. I think you need to have that villain, that big bad villain.
Yeah.
And I mean, everyone talks about the Houston Astros, and especially Carlos Correa and and Trevor Bauer, and they've kind of positioned themselves as the villains of baseball. And the Yankees, you can't blame how the Yankees run their operation. They are very successful.
Just quickly touching on Houston, they've got off lightly, haven't they? Let's face it. If they were travelling around, going to away cities and away grounds where the fans literally would be on their backs, I think they've got off really lightly, not having to face the wrath of the fans.
What we're seeing right now with the fans, especially those who are upset with the Houston Astros, they're also upset with Major League Baseball because they felt that the punishment didn't serve the crime, so to speak. And the fact that Carlos Correa said what he had said about a year or so ago when he did an interview, they haven't gotten. I think you're going to see more venom from the fans. I think that as we're going to constantly do them, they're the team that everybody loves to hate. People hate the Yankees, but they respect the Yankees. People hate the Red Sox, but they respect the Red Sox.
Yeah.
People, like the Dodgers. I haven't heard anybody say anything negative about the Dodgers. People like the Cubs, but the Astros, everybody hates them at the moment.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we'll talk about this another time. I can't. If it's proven that you've been found cheating, then the consequences have to be of the highest order, right? You can't, because if it was any other sport in the Olympics, if you do drugs and you get caught, not only do you get stripped, you're not allowed to play for X amount of years or banned for life. I know that in football here, if you get caught with any kind of drugs, it's probably 6 months out. Now, how do you do that? Do you say that Houston can't play for 6 months? I get it. I understand why they haven't said, well, you can't play in our league anymore.
I think what they should have done was, obviously you can't really strip them of the World Series.
No, what I would have done is I would have said from now on for the next season, we're going to place trash cans at the plate. You have to stand in it and hit. And if you hit the trash can while you're swinging, you're out. Like, I would have done something. I know that it's not possible, but I don't know how you get around this. You can't.
I think what they could have done was, given the fact that they cheated, they could have just said, 2018, 2019, 2020, no matter what your record was, you're not going to the playoffs.
Yeah,
I think that would have been suffice. So they could have won 110 games, but you're not going to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Or you could have done something like you strip them of all their draft picks for X amount of years.
That would have hurt. That would have hurt them more, because imagine how much equity that would have been worth. Like you've got nothing now. You've got nothing.
It could have been something like that. It could have been, financially, teams can get around it somehow. Do you slap them with a $50 million fine? No, I think that's excessive. But
just no trade. 2 years, no trade. You can't trade anyone. Like a transfer ban.
Yeah, it could have been something like that. It could have been something like, hey, you know what? Free agency, you're totally out of it. If you lose your players, that's up to you.
Yeah.
But you can't sign anybody. Something that would have made it very clear that there is a punishment that needs to be.
Yeah, because surely the only thing that it's done is it's basically said to everyone else now is that you'll get away with cheating if you don't get caught. And nothing will happen when you do. It'll be a slap on the wrist and then you go about your business.
I totally agree. And I think part of that too is one, I am not confident in the Major League Baseball commissioner, Mansfield, whatever his name is. I just don't care about him anymore. I'm not going to throw him under the bus completely because I did like the universal DH from last year. I think it was a great idea. I think it was something they should have done this year. But I think right now, baseball itself doesn't have the right leaders for the game. They don't have a commissioner who makes the right decisions, and I don't think that Tony Clark is the right MLBPA guy. And I'm not saying that Tony Clark is a bad person, but there's got to be something here for the fans, and the fact that there is no universal DH this year, the fact there's no expanded playoffs this year. It was proven last year that people liked it. Why not go back to it? I don't know how they could not go back to that.
Just in short, if this was the other way round and we were talking about the Blue Jays knocking on trash cans, do you think that the punishment would have been a lot worse? Because I feel like I watch the Raps, I watch the Jays. I've watched the Jays for like a long time now, and I've always felt like definitely the commentators from the States, no time for the Jays whatsoever. Do you think that's baseball in general? Like they kind of wish the Jays didn't exist?
Watch ESPN and Fox Sports. They don't give a lot of time to the Jays. If you watch MLB Network, they do talk about Vladdy. They do talk about the Jays quite a bit. If you watch Christopher Russo, he talks about the Jays quite a bit. So, but they're a predominantly baseball show. But in terms of sports in general, I don't see the American market really accepting the Jays. Though in 92 and 93 and even 1991, they were one of the top drawing teams as a visiting team.
Yeah.
So, and they weren't really villains. They weren't the bad guys. They weren't the Houston Astros of that era. They were a very talented team and wanted to see them.
One last thing. We've got 150 games left, roughly, there or thereabouts. Do we think more highs or more lows as we go throughout the season towards September? Do we think that do we realistically think that the Jays will be there or thereabouts? For me, my answer's easy and simple. Yes, I think we'll be there. I think we will still hit around 90 wins.
I think the Jays, they don't make a move for pitching, they'll win 85. Their offense is good enough to carry them to 85 wins. Is this the Steven Matz that we're seeing right now, or is the Steven Matz of the Mets that we may get eventually? Right now, he's performing incredibly well. But again, I think they need another starter. For them to hit 90 plus wins, they'll need another starter. Again, that could be internally, could be externally, but another starter to help Ryu and at the moment Matz. It would be incredibly hilarious if it's Tanner Roark goes off and throws. And if that happens, the city and the Blue Jay fans will go nuts. If Tanner Roark somehow turns it around and starts posting sub-3 ERAs.
I'll tell you what, it's a good thing that my chair has arms. Otherwise, I would have just fallen off my chair. Like, it's...
Stranger things have happened in baseball, man. It's people who you think are finished, turn it around.
Dude, I want to finish this on a positive, okay? Like, you're saying, you're talking about Tanner Roark, please. On a positive, come on, you can do it.
On a positive, the Jays will win 85 without another starter. If they get another starter, they'll win above 90, and they will be in the wild card spot. If in the AL East, Boston and Baltimore are highly competitive, and they're showing that they have moments where they are, and they have had great games. 90 plus wins might be enough to win the AL East.
That's where I am. I'm looking at round about 90. I don't think it's going to be any higher than that, but I think we're waiting to see what happens with Nate Pearson. I think if he is he going to be another Aaron Sanchez, where he comes in, we think, yeah, this guy's got the stuff, and then for one reason or another, he's injured or he can't pitch or whatever. So I'm hoping that he comes in and he can perform. That kind of gets rid of one issue. And then we're looking for another, basically. Is that what you're saying?
I think if Pearson comes in and performs the way I think everybody's hoping he performs, I don't think you would need to get another one, because we know what we're getting with Hyun-Jin Ryu. If Steven Matz continues performing the way he is performing, you have three starters that can go into a short playoff season or a short playoff series and win you that series.
Especially with what the bullpen's shown us, right?
Yeah, the bullpen can go can give you 4 or 5 very, very good innings if a starter has to go short. And give Charlie credit for the most part, he's managed that bullpen well. I know there are times where he goes above and beyond and starts taking pitchers in and out, and it gets to be a little too much. But
I've liked what he's done so far this season. I think there's only been one game where I was like, was the Tanner Rourke game actually, where I thought, nah, he's kind of got to pull him, and he didn't.
I think he wanted to go as long as he possibly can with Tanner Rourke, and sometimes you'll see that with managers. A pitcher could be getting shelled, and you're just going to stick with him.
Sheldon, so I think we'll end it there. Look, I have to say massive thank you for joining me today. It has been a pleasure. It's good to talk baseball with someone that when I'm in the UK, because let's face it, when I talk to people here, nobody knows anything about baseball. Cricket. No, not cricket. Baseball. And so, yeah, very knowledgeable, great character. I definitely would love to have you back on at some point during the season. And thanks for joining me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I would love to come back. Whenever you need me, give me DM me, and I'll make time for you.
Just make sure you tell everyone, what's your Instagram handle?
My Instagram handle is Sheldon Boots Boy. You can catch me also on Blue Jays Center. That's the Instagram handle, is that one. And also there's another one called the 40/40 Club, where it's a bunch of old people talking baseball. So for the older crowd out there, if you want to hear some, people in their 40s and 50s and 60s talking about baseball, that's the one that you could listen to as well.
Sheldon, thank you for coming on, and we'll catch up during the week, no doubt. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.